Sounds wonderful.
That sounds okay. So I have done a 4-hour energy shot in the morning when I had to get up to a gig. So I'm up at 4 in the morning, have to drive an hour and a half, and then go do work all day. And then I drink coffee. It usually is fine. So I had the wild idea of putting a 5-hour energy in my coffee. No, that is the worst concoction. No, your hot dog cocktail was worse, but
It's shot dog. Has anyone heard of the energy drink cocaine?
yes.
So yeah,
No, that's actually Coke. Actually, used to have cocaine in it. You're
no.
talking
There's
about
cocaine energy drink.
Yeah.
So
This is actually an energy drink that came out a few years ago.
just like 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah.
15 years. It was about you think like a Red Bull, but it had 4.5 Red Bulls inside of it.
Oh.
Right. So like as you were drinking it, you could feel the burning happening. They pulled it off the market, obviously, because it was deadly. But for that one day, I was the most hyper-focused I've ever been.
The Surge soda.
Surge soda?
They brought it back, man. I grabbed one in my old age and regretted it immediately. Jolt Cola.
I used to be Nas.
Yeah, it'll mess you up, man. Welcome to the energy drink panel, where we're talking about the things that'll kill you. Because as creators, you live a fast death because you're always on. But they wanted to shut down alcohol, right? Yeah, they're taking uppers and killing the downers. Yeah.
Oh, that balances. Checks and balances.
I mean, I had that realization at some point in my life, is that I was in the morning, energy drinks and Coca-Cola, or not Coca-Cola, coffee, so uppers, and at night, drinking alcohol down. I'm like, this is why rock stars die. I gotta stop this. This is gonna kill me. Love the flask, by the way. That's brilliant. Look at this. Hold it up for Phil. It's you gotta manage your life. We gotta get started. We're on.
Yeah, certainly ready.
Turn that correctly for you. Hey, we're on live and all that jazz.
Is this one being streamed?
Yes, everything is here streamed. Welcome to the Digital Media Track. I'm Charles McFall, and we're going to be talking about Patreon. We'll call it the Patreon Power Hour because we're just going to have a little discussion. We'll definitely take questions, but it was less of a panel, and more of what we've done to be creative and make it work. We had, unfortunately, she had to pull out of the convention last minute, but Dr. Pamela Gay was going to be on with us, star writer, if you've interacted with her online. And she's a Patreon ambassador, and we were very much looking forward to having her. But it's going to be Phil and I get your coffee. All right, there you go. Speaking of uppers and downers, a pre-show, we're talking about the uppers and downers of life. DragonCon charity, not sponsor. I saw sponsor right in front of me. DragonCon charity is Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Metro Atlanta. Please, especially if you're online watching, text mentor, the word MENTOR, mentor, to 243-725. That will let you donate. And for every dollar you donate, up to $100,000 will be matched by DragonCon. And that kind of shows you the COVID year, because normally it's $500,000 that they'll match. Unfortunately, this year they're doing less, but as we learned in the first panel, one is more than zero. So there we go.
Good math.
Yes. Look, they really help out children who need help. Big brothers and big sisters. It makes a huge difference. Please help us support them this year. Also, in the room, if you'd like to ask a question, we will be taking questions. You need to step up to the microphone, not because we can't hear you, but because the stream won't be able to hear you. We are streaming live on twitch.tv/DC Digital Media. And I'll give the hashtag.
It's right there.
Yeah, it's over there. DC.
Okay, good.
We put
you looked confused for a bit.
Yeah, I'll try to,
It's literally your channel.
ADD, man. ADD. It works for me. Hashtag, if you're taking pictures, we have a picture wall, and this is it, actually. It'll show up right here. Hashtag is DragonCon DMT for digital media track. So DragonCon DMT 2021 will get you on the wall. And as you take pictures, we do collect those and put them out on our Instagram later and Facebook and those kind of things. We want to see, and it's not just these panels, anywhere out. If you want to tag us, we'd love to see what you see the con as. And a big thank you to Blueberry for sponsoring this year. It's because of them we get great cameras in multiple rooms and be able to do what we do. So with all that being said, don't wait. The moment you have a question, go ahead and step up to the microphone and we'll talk. But let me introduce Philip D. Keating of Botched, who I go to, honestly, for Patreon advice on how to set up a Patreon, everything.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Philip D. Keating, the imaginary nomad himself. I have gone through all the trials and tribulations of Patreon through failures and successes. And that's kind of why I wanted to pitch this panel and have an open conversation with people that actually have questions, because I've been to hell and back with Patreon, and some things have worked for me and some things haven't. So that's why I wanted to bring you on as well, because I've launched 5 Patreons, and 3 of them have been fluid and successful for me. And I know that you at the Pokemon Go,
5 or 6 patrons I've launched. Patrons I've launched. So funny story. It's how I got to work with Brian Ibbett, who is kind of podcasting royalty. I met him at a conference. He's playing the same game I've been playing, and then I lost my job and got laid off. And I'm looking, I'm on unemployment. I'm looking for jobs, but I'm loving this game. So one computer's over here, looking for jobs, which is drudge, right? If you ever had to do that when you're unemployed and you're married, it's not a good feeling. And the other one is playing this video game. And he and I had already been talking to each other. And I was like, you know what? Now, this is before Patreon. This is a good 3 months before Patreon launches. So you didn't really get paid to podcast at all. There was no easy route. And I went, well, my wife's going to come home mad because I've only applied for 5 out of 10 jobs I'm supposed to apply for today. But I spent 6 hours playing this game. I better make a show and make some money at it, which was not a thing. 3 months later, a month later, I got Brian Ibbett on board. 2 months later, Patreon came out, and we launched instantly with them and made money doing a podcast. We made about $500 a month doing this niche Facebook video game. Then I met Chris Wisdom, who's in the audience here, and some other people through. So you're welcome. I manifested Patreon for everybody.
Thank you.
Put it in the universe.
Thank you so much, Charles.
No, I mean, it's done, but yeah.
Let me ask you a question, because this is a question that I've heard through other panels and other things that I've sat through. When do you traditionally launch a Patreon? Are you one of the people that, you have a show idea and then you want to launch the show and the Patreon at the same time? Or are you in the other camp where you want to wait a little bit and try to gain an audience, or set yourself at like an episode goal? Like, hey, let's do this many episodes and then we can start talking about Patreon.
Now, you're asking me personally?
I'm asking you personally,
okay,
because there is no wrong answer, right? Both options are good. It's just I want to know which direction you went and why did you go in that direction?
So you heard the other story. It's initially, I waited. Now, I would tell you, if you're starting a new podcast and you don't have a following of yourself, I'd wait episodes. My title is Rock Out of Podcasting. I've been around since 2004 when podcasting came around. I've done a number of shows. I've worked with a lot of big people. So now, when Pokemon Go podcast is a great example. When Brian and we bought that show. Somebody else started it before the game came out just to grab the URL and start building content. They were a fan of Brian's. They knew that he worked with a network, which was something he and I built. They came to us. So we purchased that URL, that whole title, and a host to go with it who's in the back of the room. Hey, Joe. And Joe, see, that's the thing. Joe had no idea this was going on. The guy who was running it sold it to us, and I had to have some interesting conversations with Joe. It's weird, but
a name
Joe's
and then a Joe to be named later.
But we came in. Brian and I came in and go, oh, we can make money with this. Yeah. So we launched a Patreon instantly and launched when Pokemon Go the game came out. When you searched it, our podcast came out with it and launched to, what was it, Joe? 9,000 downloads in one day because of the game. And then instantly got some hate from the community. Oh, these guys are just commercial. They just want to make money. So, well, you're not actually listening. We do lead with patreon.com/Pokemon Go podcast, but then we give real content. And Joe's still here today. Well, how many years are we doing it, Joe?
5.
I don't count 5 years.
5
4,
years.
5? Yeah, 5 years. 5 years strong. We're still doing good content. But no, now everything I do, I build the Patreon with it because I don't do it if it's not going to move my business forward.
Sure.
But that's my path right now. What about you?
So I'm more of the let's build the content first and have the Patreon come second, because I don't want to do all this extra work of building a Patreon and then have a show just fizzle out. So normally for me personally, it's let's get to 10 to 25 episodes, and then we can start going down that avenue. But also, what can I offer to people that makes Patreon worthwhile, and what can I offer people through the Patreon that's
the hard part.
But that is evergreen, right? Because you can't just do one thing, because then why are they subbing for more than 1 month, right? So you got to figure out that Rubik's Cube of what can I offer that every month it matters for them. So for instance, real quick, I had a Animal Crossing podcast for a while called Nook's Tavern, right? And what we were doing a little bit differently was we were streaming it on Twitch, but the entire studio and the hosts were done in-game, right? So I would just capture card. I built a studio, and one of the things that we offered was a seat in-game inside the studio. Yeah. So, I built this chairs things, and it caught on. So now it gave people a reason to keep being subs, because somebody wanted to be, a seat in the room when it happened.
And as a non-Patreon person, because they would do their show about the same time we do Pokemon Go, but sometimes a little earlier, they'd run a little longer. I could jump in and to watch that live audience. They are all characters in the game, right? They're not physically there. It brought that whole new live aspect to it that was a community that looked really great.
Yeah. So
it felt great.
Yeah, it was really cool. Now, unfortunately, right, that show has kind of gone on hiatus because we haven't had any new updates in over a year and a half. But that's
for the game.
Yeah. So it's like, well, I'm not going to keep charging people for a Patreon of a show that doesn't exist anymore.
The other path, that is the hard thing, and I keep saying Brian Ibbott, and people know like, oh yeah, Brian Ibbott. Let me tell you, Brian and I have been working on multiple shows and games together for a good year, 2 years before Pokemon came around. And you would think with my reputation I built up, especially with his reputation with Coverville and Frog Pants and everything he does a morning stream, that, man, we would have had a huge patronage and a huge – nope. The podcaster's dilemma is no matter how big you are, when you start that new project, you start at almost zero. And so I just want to be clear about that, because I hate when somebody gets on stage and be like, yeah, I got in with this person. They handed me this, and that's it. No, we had to – Brian and I both, everything we've ever done, we had to work from the ground up, even after we built reputations. I've still not got my Hall of Fame nomination. I'm a little bitter, but that's okay. But even after he got Hall of Fame, if he starts a new project, the contest, America's Next Top Podcaster, still had to work from the ground up. And first season was very low. Second season was bigger patronage, so on and so forth. So again, if you have a question, step up to the microphone. Otherwise, we're going to – but to the other end of it, right? You built an audience. You got people to donate, which is basically what you're asking to do. We made the mistake on Pokemon Go to say, if you donate at this level for so many months, you'll get a physical T-shirt, right? Well, that's shipping. But that's printing. Okay. That's hard. Go ahead.
Let me tell you about Botch Podcast. When I first created the Patreon for Botch, this is exactly what we did, right? I had physical goods, not realizing like, okay, there's no retainability there for people, because once they get their T-shirt, that's it. And also the shipping and the cost of buying all this stuff and then having to put it out in the world. And it was actually one of our patrons contacted me and said, hey, I love you guys. I want you to succeed. I want to be able to finance you, but your Patreon is terrible. It's absolutely garbage. And so it was at that point where I had to really be butthurt for a second, but then realize, yeah, you know what? He's right. And so I had to fully revamp from the ground up this Patreon. And thankfully, it's better now, but there's always things that could be tweaked. There's always things that could be changed. We have levels go in and out because we'll try something weird and different. And if it doesn't move and nobody wants it, all right, I'll just delete it and then put something else up there and just keep making changes to see what sticks. Yes.
Hello. I have a Patreon right now. It's actually like a pin club. type ordeal.
What's your Patreon?
My Patreon is called Galley Cat Studio, where I just offer exclusive pin variants for pins that I design and stuff.
Cool.
But I've had it for about 8 or 9 months right now, and I have about 30 patrons
Heck yeah.
right now.
That's awesome.
But thank you. But I'm kind of experiencing for the past couple of months that it hasn't really grown so much. It's just kind of been kind of stagnant. So I'm kind of not sure like how
What the next
able to
step
make
is?
it grow.
Well,
Yeah,
let me
what the
ask
next
you,
step
how
is.
do people find out about your Patreon other than coming up to a microphone at a con and telling people?
Well, no,
Which you
yeah,
should,
yeah,
by the way. If
yeah.
you got a Patreon, when you step up, my
Yeah, no,
Patreon
I
is.
mean, I didn't even realize this was going to be live or anything. So,
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, live.
That's
So,
what I'm gonna
but like on my social media and stuff, like on Instagram, TikTok.
Okay, so you're
things like
putting
that, yeah.
content out. To
Yeah, I'm
promote
trying to
your
put
good.
content out and things like that. So, and just letting people know, hey, like this is this month's pin design. You can get the variant exclusive this way. So, and it's only available for those people that are subscribed and stuff. So, and I've been trying to do new things. Like I have like a Discord server for them and things like that. So
That's
that
That is
always
key.
Yeah.
That is
Community.
beautiful and key.
but I'm not sure what like how I can make it grow at this point. So
Don't worry
Yeah.
about it, right?
Well, yes and no. Realize right now, we're not in the correct dimension and timeline. So
Yeah.
like,
that's true.
like the fact that your Patreon has 30 people now during pre-apocalypse is pretty awesome. And everybody's, I mean, the ones that I have, are in flux and having problems getting over places because people have different financial things going on right now and all that. So it is difficult, but getting and just finding different avenues is perfect. The Discord idea is it's a standard in every Patreon that I build. And it's a low entry fee because it's important to get that community together because the community is what's really going to build and push your Patreon to the next level.
Okay.
I've noticed with my community, like it used to be, we had a higher donate, like it was like $5 a month to get into the Discord, and it was there forever. And it was like, well, what the hell are we doing? Why are we gatekeeping at a higher level when we really just want to build this weird playhouse? So we dropped it, and as soon as we dropped it, like it started to open up the floodgates. But it's always good to analyze what you're doing for Patreon and then making changes where you think need to be changed. But it's also good to talk to your Patreon or your patrons as well,
Yeah.
because they're the ones that care enough to support you, right?
Yeah.
They want you to succeed as much as you want to succeed. And bouncing ideas off my patrons is what I do constantly.
Yeah.
What are your levels? What do you offer?
I have just like a $2, like they have access to my posts and everything behind the scenes stuff.
Okay.
And that's about it.
So how do you get the pin? Is it a discount to get the variant pin? How do you get, you said your variant's exclusive to your Patreon. How do you get that?
I'm sorry.
So you said your variant pin
Yeah.
is exclusive to your Patreon.
Yeah,
How do I get that?
Oh, that's like a $15 tier. So it's like a variant, and then they get an exclusive sticker too. And then there's a $5 tier that's just a sticker.
So, and what you're talking about, the playing with things, Joe and I had to do this with our Patreon, and we went to our community. That's the first is if you donate at, so on that show, I'm the Filthy Casual because I don't play that much, and he's the Embrace the Underscore because he's the pro, and it's an inside thing for our show. So we labeled it once the show built up and we had these memes inside the show, then we labeled our levels that, but the base level was community. You get into community, you come talk to us, come hang out. We have a great thing. And that's where we read our experiences of the week. So it comes onto the show. We have more of a content oriented thing. But as we were changing it, we asked our community what you wanted, what they thought we could drop. And everybody said, drop the shirts. We're not here for stuff. We're here for you. And we got a 3D printer, so we made it a lot simpler for us to put out. So for you, maybe you bring that $15 tier down to $10 because you have a $2, $5, then a $15, right? And that it has to make sense for you. So maybe it's a discount for the. I don't know. Maybe it depends on when it come out every 3 months. But you got to play with that idea of spacing because you're more talking about a subscription club, right? I'm subscribing to you because I love your pins, and I want to go beyond talking to you and seeing behind the scenes. I want to go beyond getting exclusive stickers or whatever. I want the actual pin as it comes out.
Right. Okay. Okay.
I mean, I don't know what else you got.
I don't know right now.
Okay.
I think we.
Did that help a little bit there?
Yeah, no, it
Okay.
actually does. Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And just I can't say it enough. Communication with your community.
Yeah.
I found the same thing with Pokemon Go, where man, I knew it was a spike. I knew it was going to settle, and it's still settled at a nice, healthy number. But downloading the first day of 8,000 people, for episode 1, because we rebranded the episodes once we purchased that show and all that. I knew that wasn't going to hold. That percentage of what it landed on, our percentage of patrons is 10, 15%. Wouldn't that be about Botch numbers from downloads to patronage?
Yeah, about that.
So what you're talking about is building an army now, right? Is you want that dedicated few, and so you get people with the pin idea, right? You get people go, oh, I love these pins, and here's a variant, and you get them talking about it, and maybe you offer, I don't know, some kind of bumps for that, but for a smaller show I did, FTH Beyond, people, our audience, now that was one I didn't launch a Patreon for, because we're like, we're talking about this video game that may or may not get an audience, and actually the game was so bad, we were going to ride that 6-month roller coaster down and watch it crash into the ground. And it pulled up. Once it pulled up, the artist goes, how can we give you money? And we give away nothing. We have an open Discord for the whole community anyway. So it's like, if you like what we do, give us some money. And we make $30 a month off of it. It's just because people like what we do. That's it. So sometimes that happens.
This is for the pin Patreon, but this should be applied for every Patreon that's out there. Do some research on other Patreons inside your what you're doing, and then pick and choose off of different Patreons what you think could work for you, what might work for you, and then just kind of Frankenstein together something that not only you think is good, but the people that are giving you money also think is good.
Hi.
Hello.
So I have.
What's your Patreon?
My Patreon is just Illyrian, Alirien.
Heck yeah.
And I am branded as an interdimensional philomancer.
Sure.
I am a cosplayer. I am a gamer. I'm going to start doing witchcraft-related content as well. But the general concept is I make magic through sewing.
Nice.
I've had my Patreon since about February of last year. I have 5 patrons. So I'm not making very much right now. My main question, or just my question here, is how vigorously would you suggest a Patreon be promoted? Because I have been growing very slowly.
What other content are you putting out?
I am putting out work in progress photos of my costumes.
And this is all free. I'm talking about what free content to drive to Patreon are you putting out?
Free content.
Okay.
Finished photos and work in progress photos for cosplay. Patreon sees more and sees things first. So I'm trying to put that out to people like, hey, if you want to see more photos, if you want to see all the photos, if you want to see stuff a week, 2 weeks, a month in advance, come to Patreon. It's only $1 a month.
Yep.
I do also have a $5 tier. They see all the photos. $1 will see some of them. $5 sees all of them. I'm thinking of adding a $10 tier at some point because I want to start offering prints as well. But that's all I've got right now.
Yeah, I've got some if you want.
Yeah,
okay.
Take it. Start.
How do you feel about? Do you ever have people reach out to you and say, "Could you teach me what you do? Could you answer this question for me?"
Oh, that's a beautiful idea.
Very rarely. I've had a couple of, I had some very early videos from a few years ago where I was working on a Raven cosplay from Teen Titans, and I, went over a pattern that somebody else needed to know, and they were like, thank you for making this video. That's kind of the extent of it. I haven't had very much yet.
Because taking your phone and just getting a small tripod and putting it in an angle where it's catching you creating what your cosplays would be fantastic content to be putting behind that paywall.
Okay. And
then you
I
put out
design my own
clips.
sewing patterns as well. So
I see. That's perfect.
It's wonderful.
I kind of know how sewing patterns work from the 80s, whereas it's tissue paper and you pinned it. So that's my knowledge, just so you know.
Very similar
Is it,
today.
Is it possible like to put out a PDF or something digital on your patterns that your patrons could get? Like, hey, I made this pattern. Here's how you get it.
Yeah, and I did actually see a tutorial last year of how to digitize a pattern because I make them from scratch on regular paper. So I just have to scan it in. But
do you have an iPhone?
I do.
Notes will turn anything into a PDF. You take a note, it'll say scan a document, and it's a PDF. You can send it to your computer right there.
But yeah,
smart.
Yeah, so because that for me, and I always go from my experience, I don't necessarily want stuff. I think stuff's cool, but that's why I stopped subscribing to Loot Crate. It's like, it's okay stuff. I want that connection. If I said, well, I consider myself an executive producer of Botch, so I've given them $10 a month for 5 years now. I think
that's right. You are my boss.
Yeah, I know. So I've given you a considerable amount of money. But I wanted to support, and really, I knew they were going places. That was just a show. I want you guys to work. But if I'm going to be a patron of somebody, it's because I go, okay, you're doing awesome stuff. I see the patterns you're doing. I want to learn how to do this. Can I get your time? And sometimes that time is the full video of how you did it, so I can go recreate it.
And I do make YouTube videos already as well. So.
Right. So then what people want is more. So if you can bring that shorter videos down and make that your production down there, and hey, for the full video or from A to Z, 100% class on this, become a patron. And if you want a Zoom meeting with me to work with you for an hour, here's that next level up.
Okay.
And once a month, it won't be one-on-one because that's called consulting, and you don't do that through Patreon. You want to charge extra on the side.
Right.
But for Patreon, it's once a month. You do something similar where y'all host a game with your patrons.
Yep.
Right. And so they can come on and play once a month. That's for you. It'd be, I'll have a group session where you can come ask your questions for an hour or 2 hours, whatever you want to do. And then it just takes time for the word to get out in the communities. You go to the cosplay track and you step up and ask a question like, hey, so-and-so, and this is my channel. I do this. How would you do that differently? And that promotes you and gets the word out.
Or even doing like just small, quick TikToks of you working on a new project.
Yeah.
And then have just, oh, you want more? Here's my Patreon.
That's always the key. You want more? Come get it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Look like Jake, you were moving over for the Jake's with the tech team, everybody.
Hey, thank you. All right, so we have a Patreon also. It's Socially Distant Fest. We use that to support our Facebook group, Socially Distant Fest, which is for live performances. And we have a number of members in our group that have also started Patreons as well. And one of the things I've noticed is a lot of them get bogged down in creating content for Patreon, so much so that they get behind on creating their original content that they're trying to promote. So what do you do to strike a balance between those two?
Well,
uppers and downers, man.
Like I said before stream, for me, it's all about scheduling. And it's all about how much time and how much money is my time worth, right? And let me tell you, Botch has screwed up so much with their Patreon, because we used to give away exclusive episodes, right? And they were 3 to 4 hour recording sessions, and we were giving them away at $1 a month, right? Because I just wanted people to get a taste of it. But realistically, like, my time is worth more than $1 a month for 4 hours. So then we moved it. And then really it still wasn't where it should have been. So I had to move it again. And that was rough, because you have people that are like, what the hell, dude? I've committed to giving you $3 a month.
$4?
And now you're bumping it up to a higher.
Yeah.
But for me, it's all about scheduling. So Botch records every Tuesday. It's 6 p.m. Eastern over at twitch.tv/Botch Podcast. Except for one Tuesday out of the month, that's our Patreon day, right? And so we used to do it exclusive videos on YouTube, because you could schedule them and then give them to your patrons. For us, there was no turnout for it, right? It didn't work for me. Doesn't mean it's not going to work for you.
Right, everybody's different.
But it's all about expectations and scheduling yourself. This is the time that we're going to do it. And then all this other time is when we're not working on Patreon stuff.
And while you asked your question, the stream went down. Thank you, Jake. No, I was kidding. He's right. It's time management. And I tried to start doing content extra before. My flow is always live. I'm just a live guy. I thrive in front of people. So with Pokemon Go, Joe and I get together half hour before showtime to start prepping to make sure everything's right. And at least 10 to 15 minutes before show, he'll hit record or he'll start going live on the stream, and I'll hit record on the audio. And if you show up live, it goes video on demand. But here's the thing. We used to do Breaking the Panel together. We did it this way. Was we would do a 1 night a week session and record 4 episodes, which is about 3 hours of recording time. Now, yes, technically it's not exclusive because you can go dig through that 3 hours and see everything. But what we do is we would take a break on stream and it'd run a commercial. We'd still be talking, whatever. We'd record our Patreon stuff right in the middle of that whole session. So we're already in our workflow. We already have it. Boom, it's up there. For Pokemon Go, you get the whole episode. It's about an hour recording, so it's about an hour and a half that goes on Patreon. You get the whole thing. The pre-show, the middle of the show, where you can catch it live, but most people don't. Our numbers come from our downloads. And then after the show. And it's just some extra in and out there that we're already in the flow that once I have my podcast cut flow, I was like, oh, I put markers in. So boom, I rendered the whole thing done. And then I go and just cut out the markers, bring it in. So the podcast download is that clean. Here comes the intro. Here's the first half of the show, commercial break. Here's the second half of the show, which also we do commercials. So you get the commercial free part of the show as Patreon as well, which I learned from Bill. I mean, that can go gangbusters if you do it right.
Yes, but Bill also has a very strange Patreon. So
yeah, we can talk about that. I've learned some things from Bill.
So have I, but I also don't like the way that Bill's Patreon is set up. So, and that's fine because it works for him and it's his Patreon. But I would never use his model for my own.
Right, everybody's here. Come on up.
Yeah.
And we'll take, if you're live watching, type it into the chat. They'll shout it out and we'll answer your question.
Hi, I don't currently have a Patreon, but I'm hoping to launch one this year. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about tier development. I'm debating, I guess, on how hard to go in at the beginning. Like,
it's so difficult to figure that out.
Yeah. Do I plan for the short term and offer a lot at lower tiers in the beginning, or do I plan for the long term and have like little things at the beginning and then higher tiers where I have more exclusive stuff?
What are you doing?
Yeah, that's what
I'm an artist, so I do character design, concept art, illustrations. I do a lot of work in TTRPG right now. I'm looking to expand.
Are you on Fiverr?
No, I don't know what that is.
FIVERR.com. People like yourself and the buttons and the sewing. When you have something you can sell or design, I think as a noob, you go in at it. Literally started off everything was $5. You get a logo design, blah blah. Now, once you earn your credits in there, you can actually go. I paid a graphic designer $100 to do a logo for me last month. That's a place to sell stuff, but it comes into that's so hard to answer, right? Because you don't know where your content's going and how you drive your people. I know you said it too. I've changed my Patreon half a dozen times over to different shows because I thought I were going to start off this way and had not 13 tiers. You have 13. I just looked at your Patreon. You have like 12 or 13 tiers on yours. Y'all started off with
But I always start with 4.
4.
I do 1, 3, 5, 10.
Oh,
that's what
you taught me this. What's the $1?
Just
tier?
a tip.
Just a tip.
Yep.
I was thinking about that. Yeah, like doing a $1 like
not
tip
the
jar.
tip, a tip, Jake, a tip,
and then a $2 like, oh, you can get early access to my content, and then just kind of growing from there. I have some other ideas, but yeah.
How are you putting your content out?
Right now, just social media, Twitter, Instagram.
Sure. So yeah, I always do $1 is just a tip. You'll get your name shouted out at the end of a show for being a patron. $3 always gets you into the Discord. $5 gets you exclusive content that no one else, you can't get it anywhere else. And then $10 or $30 is always like executive producer, where you get a shout out every stream or every episode for being a EP. That's how I always start. And then I normally go from there to see, like I said before, seeing what the community wants and what different weird ideas I can do.
Y'all
But-
have had Dennis read a bedtime story at a $50 level.
So, and it worked for a while. But yeah, I mean, there's trying to think outside the box and to offer something that that's exclusively you can't get anywhere else. Now,
You know
some
what, though?
people will put their stuff on Patreon first, right, as like early access, and then they'll leak it out. That's fine if you do it that way, and I know a lot of people do. I personally don't, because then for me it's like, well, hold on, I can just give them $5 to get it now, or I can wait 6 months and it's going to be released, kind of like the Marvel book app, right?
Oh, yeah.
Why am I
Marvel
going to go to the
Unlimited.
bookstore when I can just
Yeah.
wait for it to hit my phone in a couple months? So that's always
But
been
that
my
depends
idea.
on how much you want it.
Of
I mean,
course.
Bill does his. Bill Fairchild does Run Jump Stomp and Switchcraft.
He does Switchcraft. He does what's the Stadia Cast?
Stadia Cast, yeah. And his audience. So that's what I want to talk about. What I did learn from him. If you ever think you might have differing venues like we both do, brand yourself. If I could go back and restart Patreon, I'd brand Raw God Podcasting on Patreon. And that would be my main thing. And then I'd work out deals with everybody I worked with to say, hey, you're going to get a percentage of what comes in through, because you can see when they start donating, everything comes in. Because what Bill does is it's Run Jump Stomp. It's patreon.com/Run Jump Stomp. Now he's a solo podcaster. So every show he does, he owns. And he's done up to 4 at a time. Now he's down to 2.5. He still does Run Jump Stomp every once in a while. But every patronage is through there. And he has a co-host for Stadia Cast, and they've worked out a deal on how to do that. And it makes so much sense. It's like when you launch a new show, you don't have to launch a new Patreon. You launch a new product, you don't have to launch a new Patreon. But I don't even go. Our Pokemon tier is $1 and $5. So we had more, and I didn't have the time to put in all that extra content. You go to Botch, you get, like you said, exclusive patron episodes that you only hear through there. And Anthony Rapp was on one of those shows.
Yeah. So like
Star Trek Discovery
of course, yeah. We
and Rent.
that's what I try to do is I try to bring in these bigger names to play D&D with us, hoping that somebody who's a fan of theirs wants to come and listen to their content over here. I had something and I was completely just fell off my brain about it.
Jump in. You interrupt me when you
will.
triggers. And to the question earlier about how hard do you promote it, you don't ever want to lead with it. Now, like here, we do the sponsorship, right? It depends on how you build the structure of your content. We're obviously digital creators. We do shows. We do those kind of things. Sounds like most of the questions are from people who are creating things in the real world. Okay, I'll come back to that.
What you were saying about Bill and his co-host and that Patreon, how many people are building a Patreon with more than one person being tied to it? Nobody.
One, two. Okay.
It's very important to lay down some track work with the people you're building this Patreon with on where the money is going and how that money is being divvied up. And it's important to get that out and understood right away. If putting it on paper is the best way, then do it that way. But like we had on that last panel, whenever you introduce money, things can get muddy. So as long as there's documentation or at least knowledge on where that money is going, the earlier the better.
And I'll give you a template to start from, and you can tweak it in from your own template. What I've done with pretty much every show is more or less depend. Like Joe and I we're a 2-person show now. We started off with 3 people, and we came down to 2. And what we agreed to was, and actually when we were part of a network. So when I built the network, part of that you had to give us 10% of what you make. So the Pokemon Go initial division was 10% went to the network. That left 90. And then we said, basically, we broke it down to 40% stays in the bank account for the business to go buy tickets to Dragon Con or whatever we need to do. That left 50% over. And then we just divided that up, how it went. And that's kind of how it goes now. Now, Joe and I do basically 50% for the show and 50% for us. So it's 25 each. And that's just a template. That's how to make it easy. You don't have to really break it down too hard, but you always want to put money back for your business. The thought I was doing before that was, you're making real world stuff. You really need to look at how, that's why I brought up Fiverr. You really need to look up how you can sell it, how you can make it for somebody else. Because Patreon is for patronage of the arts. It's When you donate to Atlanta, here is the High Museum. You're a patron of arts. You want to see art do more stuff. Here, when you donate to the charity, you want to see the littles is what they're referred to. The children are called littles. You want to see the littles taken care of more. You're giving, you're patronizing them to help them more. And that's the concept behind it. And too many people have gotten focused on how do I sell my stuff through Patreon? It won't work. Patreon is, I like you. I want to give you money because what you're doing, and I'm getting more access to what you are doing. So behind the scenes was great. So as much as you promote it, you really want to be going, look at me first. Oh, you want to buy my stuff? You don't care about me? My stuff is sold over here on Etsy or Fiverr. Because if you design things for people, Fiverr is the way to go. Creators can create on Fiverr all day long. You want to sell pens? You might do design stuff for other people on Fiverr, but you go to Etsy because they'll buy it, right? Yeah. Pinterest. Well, no, Pinterest doesn't sell,
No,
but
it
Pinterest
doesn't sell,
drives.
but yeah.
But yeah.
No, and I agree. I mean, you want to have as many avenues to make revenue off your projects as possible. I mean, everybody wants to make money, right? But I don't just rely on my Patreon alone because I'm going off of the Imaginary Nomad brand. So,
Yes.
I have my PayPal and my Patreon and my Twitch and different avenues for people to donate to me. Just unfortunately, every other avenue, you don't get anything exclusive like you would through
And
Patreon.
that's the key. Is more access, is exclusivity. So let's go. You're going to have to interpolate, right? We're coming from a creator side, so we perform. You're going to have to take what we say here a little bit and try to transform it into what you're doing for creating something. When you do your Imaginary Nomad stream, do you start off with, this is where you give me money? Do you end with it? Is it in the middle? How do you bring it up?
No. It's always in my post streams about to end plug section, right? Because I have the executive producers who come in and get their name read at the end of every stream that I do, right? And that's for Botched as well. So I just roll in right from, the EPs. Hey, you want to be part of this exclusive list? Here's how you can support the show. And then I just roll with it like that.
So I've literally been on every episode you've had for like 3 years.
What do you mean?
I'm at the EP level.
No. Oh, baby girl.
Good.
I
don't want to be on every episode you have. It drives me crazy. Pokemon Go's different. I used to do that, but here's the thing. I listen to my friends' podcasts, and Tony P. Anderson was here earlier, and he does Oddcast, and it's very short. And a lot of us host on Anchor because Anchor will help you get ads early, and he does it. Ads should almost always be in the middle of your show. And I took that, and that's where I work my Patreon stuff in. Because if you lead with the ad, I'll pretty much always skip it. I'll listen for a while to help support you, to make sure you get it. Go ahead.
So for Botch, that's what we do. Our Patreon ad is in the middle. And what we've been doing is for those exclusive Patreon episodes, I'm taking a 30-second clip out of that episode that is literally the funniest part and just putting it in that mid-show ad so that people can get a taste of what they're missing over at Patreon. And then we do, the EP roll call at the end. Yeah. So it wouldn't hurt if you're doing YouTube videos or other things, the content that you're creating behind the paywall, taking little clips and drip feeding them into different avenues, right? Into TikTok, into YouTube, or any other places that you can kind of drip feed a little bit at a time to hope to, pull a fish in. And also, I mean, I have a whale level. It's $100 a month.
Does anybody at that level?
Yes.
Okay.
And all you have is a different colored name in Discord. So
in gaming, that's kind of the definition of whale. You pay a lot of money for nothing.
But somebody wanted to, to be the only one with a gold name in Discord. So you never know what you can get unless you trial and error. You're going to fall a lot, and it's not about how you fall, it's about how you recover.
And quite literally, we want to give you as much real world practical advice as we can. So don't let me put you off when I say this. Part of it is your focus. If you're focused on making money, Patreon's probably not the way to go. I mean, you need to have it. You always need to have that separation. I'm about to launch a company called, we've already got all the paperwork so I can talk about it, One EMS. And it is, I come from a background of being a paramedic for 20 something years. I've been to Georgia that entire time. It's a backward state when it comes to medicine and how things are handled in our own emergency field. And so the company is do what I do best. We're going to be talking to people, interviewing, cameras, lights, show, which is everybody in EMS is private. So we're busting that wide open. And I said, hey, we're going to have a Patreon. Well, my partner's like, okay, I don't know what it is, but I trust you. We're also having a business level of subscription to where we teach you from our 20 years of experience of how to be better leaders, how to handle this situation. And you have to pay for that. Then we're going to have a third leg of consulting and speaking to companies and those kind of things. Tyra Burton, who I think she's working with us there. She's been in social media first. She's a good social media expert. She teaches it at Kennesaw State University. And even she went, wait, I don't understand the Patreon. I'm like, Tyra, you leave every door open to money because I know there's going to be a huge audience for the media. There's always going to be those receivers. I was about to say takers, but that's a negative thing. They're not taking from it. I'm giving. Somebody who just enjoys what you do, they'll come up to you and call, man, I love what you do. Thank you. Awesome. And they'll do that. And then there's going to be a fraction, as I said, for most of my audience, it's about 10, 15, maybe 20% of they're going to be givers, right? I love what you do. Let me support it. And the real business money is coming from somewhere else. Our focus is not to make money through the show. Our focus is, hey, this is who I am. So when I ask you how you're getting your content out, you got to be on that Instagram. These are my pins. These are my sewing patterns. This is what I do. You got to be on, depending on how you do it, TikTok. And there's somebody like, man, I can't get on TikTok. I'm like, really? Because that's where one EMS is going to be. You know what's going to be? A clip of my interview. Or me going, I feel like talking today about this thought that popped in my head for 1 minute. It's going to be hard for me, as you know. But you break it down. You can always clip things. He takes a clip of the show and puts it out, and this is what you're missing out there. Patreon will actually let you put up as many episodes as you want, and it'll ask you, do I charge for this? Content. Now, I come from an episode mindset, but content. Do you charge for this? You can go limited time run, right? Then it's public. There's early access. Or you say, no, this is a sample so that the world will see on Patreon, which is a searchable site of what you're doing. And if you want more, come through Patreon.
No. That's another thing I was going to bring up because there is two different stylizations on how to run your Patreon. You can either do it month by month or post by post. Where do you normally fall when it comes to making that decision? Because
I made a bad decision.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's
shifting gears.
Shifting those gears, man. They can get really grindy.
Oh, yeah.
And I've seen people do it successfully, where they went month to month and then they went episode to episode. I've seen a couple do it successfully, but the percentage of that trying to get it to make that is really difficult.
So going back to the first time we ever got on Patreon, we went episode to episode. Right. And we were making $400 to $500 a month. And when we got I don't remember why we thought we should change to monthly and make it easier for people, but we did. What we did not take into account that still stands true today is Patreon. When they say I'm going to pledge $5 an episode, that's $20 a month.
Heck yeah.
Give or take $20, $25 a month. Patreon does not go, oh, they're pledging $25. They go, they're pledging $5. And when we went to by month, we lost a huge chunk of revenue. Had to go back to our fans and go, we're so sorry. Could you please give us more money? Because we just cut our nose off to spite our face and didn't mean to. And they stepped up because they wanted to help us, but we lost so much. And we weren't focused on it, but it was a sizable thing. I do episode to episode or post to post as a digital creator. What do you have?
I was just saying, with I forgot your name, the green shirt.
Philip.
Saying you
Steve. Phil.
But you're saying you like to have your content like all created before you begin to put it online in your Patreon. So like if you have like just massive amount of content that you just never put out online, would you stagger it on Patreon or would you just like
that's a good question.
dump it?
No, I always stagger it. Because it gives them a reason to continuously be subbed to me.
Yeah.
Because
I'm gonna give a different answer.
Yeah, that's fine. Month to month, there's always going to be about 4 hours of new content waiting for them.
See, I got it's kind of like I got some just like given to me, which is content, but it's kind of I guess time sensitive. But the show Stranger Things, season 4, they filmed that in my best friend's house growing up. So it's kind of weird because like that's the house that like that was my 80s.
Sure.
Okay.
But just because I have that point of view on
Yeah.
how that's going to work for my Patreon.
So let me.
There's
specifically.
no wrong answer
Right.
because
Yeah.
Are you specifically talking about you have content like it's basically kind of behind the scenes or some special stuff that would go with that show when they launch that season?
Yeah, I mean the house has like a number of secret passages through it. It's an
Okay.
old Victorian
spoilers.
house.
now that's-
spoilers. What
That's
the heck?
specific.
Sorry.
No, that's
Shit, we're
specific
all
though.
lying.
Okay, so that's why it's a very specific answer to your specific situation.
Yeah. Okay. so
That
that's
you got to stay on
good,
top of that wave.
because
okay.
then I can put this is a pay here if you want to find out about this.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
And that way
Because
I can keep the people.
They're gonna drop it all at once, so
Yeah.
you want to drop it all at once, but label it to the episodes more or less if you can. Said, hey, and then on the free, you want to keep some free out there because you got to say, hey, you just saw Stranger Things episode or season 4 episode 2. Come check out the house video here, and then give a clip, and then because I'm telling you, that's that perfect moment of you're tying into a huge brand legally, right? That's the key, legally tying into their brand, and so people are like, oh, I want more Stranger Things. If you wait and stagger that out
Yeah, it's
6
not
months
gonna-
after the show drops,
it's not gonna
nobody's going to care. But if you drop it all at once, but tie it and keep making posts to it,
But you also
drive
want to
that
build
thing.
that suspense, right? If there's secret
You-
passages all over that
It's like, I
house,
don't want to give away anything for their show. Or anything,
Sure.
but like I've been in and out of that house, and I probably knew passages that the show never even.
but what I'm saying is you want to create your content of like getting right up to that secret passage, and then that's where the video ends. And the only way that you get to see where that passage goes and what it is over at Patreon.
so it's a bit of a stagger. You stagger, but you also drop. You see the balance
Yeah.
there? Now, my answer is a little different than what you were talking about for my specific situation. I created a show called Finding the Stories. It's honestly been creatively one of my most successful ventures. I did not do a Patreon for it at first because I knew my life and my busyness that I didn't know if I was going to go into season 2. I know now. So when season 2 drops, it'll be, and support us at patreon.com/finding the stories, where you can get all of season 1 and the extras. Because I kept all the extras, I kept all the videos. All the extras from season 1 are going to be there. And as season 2 drops, you'll get more content.
Yeah, and
So I'm going to do both.
and that's important too, right? So if you're doing podcasting and you're editing your show, anything that you cut out, I personally save. So like Botched normally gets split up, and I normally have about 10 minutes worth of extra content. And so what I do is at the end of every season that we have, I take those out of context, deleted jokes that didn't fit, and I'll do like a mega mash of all the jokes that got cut out. And it's normally about like 35 minutes worth of content.
And we got time for you. We're
Our
gonna get
patrons
started
look
with
forward to it every season. So
And if you can't tell, we love to talk. And so he was on season 1, and Bill too. I had Bill Fairchild on, and we did the show, which I tried recording about an hour to respect their time, cuts down to about 45 minutes. And then there was another with Bill. There's another hour and a half of conversation of where he talked business and stuff that I kept for when I knew I was going to drop the Patreon.
it
Come on.
was.
All right. I don't have a Patreon yet.
Get
but
out of
I-
here. No, I'm just kidding.
But what is it? I've been thinking about it, and I'm in music, and I kind of foresee the potential issue with exclusive content being with Spotify, because I do things I can't put on Spotify now, and most of the comments you get is, when is this coming out on Spotify, even if you can't legally put it on there. And I'm wondering how you can do exclusive content for Patreon when a lot of people aren't going to be listening to it without going to their favorite Spotify
Well, okay.
or not Spotify.
Patreon will give you an exclusive
RSS feed. And I know, right? I know it's a pain in the butt because everybody that is a normal human uses Spotify to listen to podcasts. But he's right. It's that private RSS feed that you would put into a podcatcher of your choice, which would bring it right to their phones.
I haven't used Spotify for podcasts. Can you? Because I know other podcasts.
I'm not a normal
have yours.
human. I don't. Can't.
Okay, so maybe you know. I don't. Does anybody else use Spotify to listen to podcasts? Nobody. Okay.
Yeah, a few.
Maybe y'all can help us answer this. My podcatcher of choice is a different one. And I'm going to try Spotify, but I know in that podcatcher, if I don't find it on iTunes or Spotify where it's listed, I can plug in the RSS feed and it'll just download it to my phone and let me listen to it. Can you do that on Spotify? Does anybody know? Nobody's tried it yet? So that's something to look at, because that way you take your Patreon feed, plugging it into the Spotify, and then go, oh, okay, we're pulling these episodes somewhere else.
Patreon also has an app. It's not great, but there is a way to listen to audio files put on there through their really great app that they have. But yeah, I mean, music and Patreon, it just so I don't have a correct answer for you,
Well, let me.
unfortunately. But
Yeah. Okay.
just music on Patreon is such a wonderful idea.
Well, it's made by musicians.
Well, yeah,
And
exactly.
Pamplemousse, basically Jack Contro, I think is his name.
Conti. I think,
Conti,
right?
thank you. That's who started Patreon.
You could also put up demos.
Well, that's the thing,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Demos and things that you can't get anywhere else. But if a lot of if a lot of their listening base is using Spotify, there's not really.
But you can also, like, if you know, hey, this is how I got this guitar tone. Check this out. Little stuff like that.
Live performance also.
Live performance.
Well, that's what I do, right?
With
Because I'm the king of recording songs and then deleting them right away because
Yeah, I
they're
hate you for
terrible.
that. They're not terrible.
But I've been giving them to the patrons, right? And like, hey, listen to this before I delete it. Isn't it terrible?
Another way is like we talked about, create that Discord community, but it's locked, right? Our Pokemon is locked. You have to go through Patreon to get into our Discord. And going back to promoting, we're talking about in the middle of the show. When we start reading our experiences of the week for our show, which is done through Discord, and you get to our Discord by going to patreon.com/Pokemon Go podcast and blah, you back in it that way. So it's a natural flow. But if you make it a locked Discord, then you just put your content in a room on Discord and they can listen to it there, right? So now you're not worrying about Spotify. Now they're coming to your community to listen to that content.
I know that what is it? The work in progress stuff. I already had that on like a separate thing.
Okay.
But like over there in the chair, I was kind of wondering like if another solution for the Spotify would be kind of unvaulting stuff with like the whole talking to the community thing, but having stuff be removed from the exclusivity after like a while. If that would be a good alternative to a lot of people are asking me like, when is this going to be on Spotify? I'm like, well, you can vote to unvault it and put it up to everybody else.
Yeah. And then to vote, you have to come in at the bottom level, get in our community to vote or those kind of things. I can tell you, the free people are going to vote, unlock it now. Those who paid might vote a little differently. Carlin. Dan Carlin. Thank you. Dan Carlin, who does Common Sense and Hardcore History. I became friends with him early on in podcasting. And the advice that he gave, because I asked him, it's like, why do you, because then it was CDs. Like if you wanted his old stuff, you had to buy it on CD and you had to pledge so much money or pay him so much money.
They had CDs that would do 5 hours worth of content.
It's a CD collection. It was a CD collection. And then those HD CDs.
Yeah.
But I asked him about that. And he's like, he puts in so much work and so much stuff that's how he makes money. He's like, oh, you love what he said here about this part of history. It's almost like Time Life. Go back and hear this thing on World War I. Go back and hear this thing on this part of history, that part of history. That's kind of what you're talking about with Patreon and the unvaulting. That's what triggered is the unvaulting. Take that old Disney trick. Is if you have evergreen, which means it's going to go forever, right? It's always relevant. If you have that content and you're that person, take it down. I mean, also, if I get to season 4 or 5 of Finding the Stories, I might take. I'm going to follow the. I like ridiculousness on MTV. Well, there's some seasons you only get 2 episodes, and it's like season 5. You only get 2 episodes. See, the newest season of 18 or whatever it is, you get all the episodes because it's on right now. I might take that pattern of, hey, here's 2 of my favorite stories on Finding the Stories. You want more? From season 1, come to Patreon, or just keep listening to the free version that's out right now, season 4, season 5, whatever I'm on. And that Disney thing of vaulting and unvaulting thing, it works. It works. Slap some new album art on it, and you're good. Or wait till a friend of mine, Brian D. Bradley, I love the name drop. I love it. Yes, please come up. Ask the last question. But Brian D. Bradley writes for TV. He's done Mad TV. He's done Uncle Buck for TV. I might vault his, and it's Patreon only. And then when he goes to get that next big TV project and it makes variety and it's about to air on Netflix or wherever it's going to hit, hey, guess what? Brian D. Bradley, creator of this awesome show that you love, he was on Finding the Stories, and I make that one free and really promote it hard. That then drives them in. What you got?
Okay, so I'm on Twitch, Polar GTV.
Heck yeah.
Could do my pitch. For Patreon, I was looking at doing tier 1 as a tip. Thank you, you exist.
Yeah.
And now I exist. Tier 2 was some people don't like doing Twitch subs. So
Sure, yeah.
I was doing it as a $5, make sure that I get more, and Twitch doesn't really get any of it type of
That's
thing.
smart.
Version of it to do it. And then they get to name an animal on one of my things on there. So I do a Minecraft PG sort of stream, and they get to name one of the animals. And one of the things I have is I'm collecting all the animals. And so there's lots of them that need names. They also get, when I move it from Twitch as an archive, I move it to YouTube and I'll list their channel in the actual part there. Now, I had an idea though that I wanted to start a new map, and it would be a Patreon designed map. It would be a
Ooh, nice.
creative one. They would decide, what am I building, what materials I'm using, all of that. But I can't figure out how to do that. Because if it's a monthly thing, are they continually doing this? And then you were saying something about episodic. Well, will that now destroy the whole first 2 tiers?
Well, okay, how are
And
you
is
set
it
up
a
right now? Are
second?
you done post to post, or you done monthly subscriptions?
It's monthly.
Okay, keep it there. Don't
Perfect,
change it.
yeah.
Don't change it. No, the more control and access they have, the more it costs money, right? And if they give you $10 this month, you have to set your limits. Like, okay, you get to pick one thing in the world or 2 things, whatever makes sense for what you're doing. They can pick up to that many, because you get that $10 no matter what. The next next month it rolls over. At the $10 level for Botch, I don't know if you've changed it, but
You get
at
to
one
name
point,
an NPC. You get to make a track
yes.
to mess with the players. You get to have just something small to manipulate the actual story.
And over 4 years, 3 years, I've only done it twice. Well, I got a random idea. I messaged Dennis, who's the DM and all that, and said, hey, I want this weapon that I made for him that it did not ever trigger on him, and it killed me. But
who's
I
the
tried to
one
mess
that's
with it.
triggered?
Yeah, I got triggered. And I
So
kept waiting.
You
episode
put it
after
on
episode.
them to come back to you and say,
Correct.
okay, I want this built.
100%.
Because
it
you've
was going to
opened
be
the door.
one
It's
stream,
here.
like I stream multiple times a day or multiple times a week. So it would be one stream would be just that. So it'd be 6.5 hours of building what they wanted out of whatever the materials were within the constraints. It's a PG server.
Yeah.
So
Have your rules.
yeah.
Because just because they
can
paid
do
mean they
that.
get to break the rules.
No,
Yes,
and
that is-
you have to be very upfront and honest with them about that. Like
Oh,
with the NPC stuff and all the trap stuff, it says like, yeah, you get to do this, but it has to be approved by the cast, right? I'm not going to just let somebody do something terribly that would be off brand for even Botched. So as long as those expectations are right there up front, it's going to be perfect. And you'll find out that the people that give you $10 to manipulate that map, they're not going to abuse it. They're going to be the ones that, like Charles said, will come in with an idea once, maybe twice, 3 times. And then even, like I was saying before, just open communication with the people that are your patrons about expectations.
And then, because you're right, there are people that don't want to do Twitch subs, and you don't really want to start a war. So I don't know how you work this. This is an idea I just had. Is on Twitch, right? You get the bits, and you get the what's the train one? The
Hype
hype
train!
train.
Woo,
Hype
woo!
train. So that's how you push it. It's like with your, because at some point you just said start a new map. I know I watch my kids play Minecraft all the time. You decide you want to start a new world or destroy that one. Well, you could kind of feel when that's getting old. And then on Twitch, you start running. If we get the hype train to level 4 or level 5, we'll burn the world to the ground today. And then, so now you brought in all that instant, because your patrons are already ready. And you're like, hey, we're going to end it around this time. Let's see what we can do on Twitch. But you see what I'm saying? You build both the hypes, and now it's like, oh, it's a fresh new world. If you want to come build it next week, patreon.com/PolarGTV.
all right. Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right. Well, with that, it is going to be time for us to get out of here. These are great questions, and I wasn't sure I was going to go. I'm glad you pitched
Oh,
it.
hells yeah. This was great. Look, everyone, you can follow me on Twitch, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at @1 at the Imaginary Nomad. My DMs are always open, so feel free to slide in there with any questions and whatnot. And if you want, I'll even look at your Patreon and give you suggestions of what I know. Patreon.com/Botch Podcast, Patreon.com/Imaginary Nomad, Patreon.com. No, there's only the 2. 7 o'clock, I have
And this guy will get on other shows and pimp his own Patreon in front of others. Yeah, that's great.
no one else is going to pimp my Patreon but myself.
But when we're trying to do a show we
I
work
don't
on
care
together.
about your
yeah.
show. 7 o'clock, I'm having an improv Ask a Pokedexpert with the foremost expert of Pokemon, Mike Ellison. We're going to answer your questions about Pokemon that are in the real world, and it's going to be fun and weird. And then 10 p.m., I'm going to be blood feuding with it's Botch Podcast versus somebody, but it's an improv show, 21 and older. It's family.
Incorporated is that somebody?
I don't know. It's like a homecoming game where you're the good team and you bring in the weak team to win.
It's a family feud, audience participation. It is 21 and older, so have your IDs ready at the door. Charles, where can people patronize
me?
Yeah, thank you.
First off, I don't like Pitfall coming and interrupting our panel with that kind of mess. But secondly, I will just do three. Anchor.fm/finding the stories is where you can directly subscribe to my show there, where I sit for an hour and talk to people about their lives and really go through who they are versus what they've done. As people who do great things, but why they do it, what drives them. I love just finding out the story behind who the person is. And it is on also charlesmcfall.com, where you can find more of what I do, hire me for the different things I do. And then the third site is theconmods.com, where we go, Tony and I go to conventions and we moderate panels with celebrities, and we bring that storytelling aspect to it, as opposed to just, remember episode 58 when you did this? We also bring more of that personal thing. And Tony and I, it's on this one, at 5:30 in the Crystal Ballroom, Tony and I will be doing the Super Fantastic Family Fun Time Game Show, which is an improv game that lets you come up, spin the wheel. You've got to do all the work, and we just make fun of you. It's a lot of fun. Actually, we don't make fun of you. It is a lot of fun. Come and see us at 5:30 in the Crystal Ballroom. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Woo! Thank you. Next year, we got to start when we end our panels, do the free schmank. So everybody leaves.
Na, 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 na.
5:30 is next. I'm heading up right now.
What I'm really happy with is that like people now have my mom buttons and they have no idea why.
Yes. She's the best.
Good panel, boys.
It was.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Did he come in like 5 minutes before we ended?
No, he was here.
The whole time?
No, not the whole time, but like.
Yeah. I thought maybe I misjudged the time. I did see you walk in.
Yeah, of course. It came in like
Basically,
20
I need to
minutes
make
late.
more videos and more on
Yeah, well, if that's
I'll
what's
put-
going to work for you.
I went him and
I just want to do the audit the way people were.
I am so excited to intro.
Oh, yeah.
That's exactly what I'm doing.
It's really my favorite thing about my Botch Podcast.
Yeah.
And but